So hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sofia and I'm based in Helsinki and it's very sunny and nice here today. I'm here with my colleagues Pascal and Ebru and they are going to talk about the retrospective today. And this is the last Scrum event that we're going to go through in this webinar series. So if you missed something before the retrospective, you can also visit our web pages to find the recordings for that. Today we are going to use the chat function. So if you want to interact with us during the webinar, please open the chat already now and set the settings to chatting with everyone so that you can also let the other participants know your thinking and thoughts throughout the webinar. In the end, we will also have time for your questions and we would like you to put your questions in the Q&A section that you can find beside the chat, so that we can have a look at all the questions in the end of the webinar after Ebru's and Pascal's presentation. So we will save enough time in the end to try to answer all of your questions. I'm also recording the session today, so if someone's here and wants to share around the links afterwards with colleagues who missed us, that's totally fine. We will be posting it on social media and on our web pages, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, my colleague Lauren is also here behind the scenes, so she will be helping you also in the chat if you want to ask her something. Other than that, I'm giving the words now to Ebru and Pascal. You can introduce yourselves and take it from there, and I will see you again with the questions a little bit later.
Thank you, Fia, for this introduction and talking about the practicalities. We will be using Miro and we will be sharing our screens. So let me start sharing the screen and take you back to the introduction part while Pascal is starting the introduction.
Yeah, that's the wrong screen. So if you go
yeah, I will be just putting it.
Okay. Yeah. So welcome from my side. I'm Pascal. I've been working with Agile 42 now for 3.5 years, and I've been at that time being a full-time coach. I'm an active member in the Finnish Agile community, so I'm located in Finland. Among others, I'm the co-organizer for the coaching circle in Finland, and also we are organizing a coach camp for everybody who is interested. I can put the link later in the chat. We will have a coach camp in Finland organized in August over the weekend, 12th to 14th of August. That would be an open space retreat, and ticket sales are now open. That's not related to Agile 42, but I mention it anyway. Yeah, and I've been working as a coach. I'm a certified coach by ICF and also by Scrum Alliance, and I've been working in Finnish, English, and German, so I've been a bit more multinational and different languages. And my contact details can be found there from the slide. And Ebru, perhaps you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. I'm living in Turkey and located in Istanbul. I have been working with Agile 42 for the last 8 years. And before joining Agile 42, I was working as an internal Agile coach in a telecom company. So I can deliver coaching and training in English and Turkish. And most of my clients or the companies I work with are also located in Turkey. But I have been also working in different locations. I am an authorized instructor of delivering IC Agile classes. So I'm delivering IC Agile team facilitation and IC Agile coach classes. I'm also completing my path to become a certified International Coaching Federation certified professional coach in the couple of months, following months. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also an organizational system relationship practitioner. So learning and improving yourself, developing yourself, growing never stops. And I'm really excited to be here with you with this webinar talking about the retrospectives. And my contact info is already on the presentation and you will just reach me out. So that's, I think, from us. And then what is next? Let me take you here. So we have 2 questions for you as an opening questions. since we want this to be an interactive webinar, we will also like to hear from you. And we have two questions. The first question is about how does the Scrum team inspect and adapt to increase transparency at the Sprint Retrospective? And the second question is, what are the possible effects of skipping the Sprint Retrospective? And here we want you to answer these two questions using the Mentimeter. Here we have the link, and we also have the QR code. Who would like to reach out Mentimeter by just QR code? So we will just give you 1 minute to go and answer the questions, and then my colleague Pascal will be showing up the results. Okay, you are just asked to write some statements. Okay, here you go. So we will just wait for 1 minute, and I'm starting a timer also in our Miro board. Okay.
I can put the link also on in the chat so you can find it there.
Okay, thank you, Pascal. That's a good facilitation technique.
Can you already see some interactions on the Venti side, Pascal?
Yeah, I can see some. So perhaps I can share my screen for a moment.
Okay, I'm stopping.
So hopefully you see my screen. So we have some answers here, identifying the elephants, using the starfish, reflect the sprint, come up. Many great answers on this one. So if I go to the next one, there was also a second question. What are the possible effects of skipping the sprint retrospective? So if you don't have a sprint retrospective, what happens then? So transparency is missing. We're not improving. Team is not getting productive, not learning, getting stuck. Teamwork decreases. Problems are not resolved. Yes. Great. Thank you very much. Those are great answers, and yeah, we have seen many of those in our life and experience while facilitating retrospective and now helping other people run better retrospectives in our role as coaches. Good. So I pass over to you. I'll stop sharing and then copy them also to the board.
Okay, thank you. I'm sharing my screen again. So those were really very good questions, and so that brings us to talk about empirical process control. And as Sophia mentioned before, we have already run some activities talking about other Scrum events, which were also based on empirical process control. So as you already know that Scrum is based on empirical process control and lean thinking. And retrospectives are the final activities for the team to be able to improve and to take the chance of using the empirical process control. Because in empiricism, we know that the knowledge comes from the experience, and the decisions, good decisions, come from the observations. And in order to be working in the empirical way, we need to have three facts. That is the transparency. So the work and the process must be visible to everyone in order to see the problems and the good things. And then when we have the transparency, we have the inspection time. So it's not like we work every time. And since Scrum is also based on iterative way of working, we stop and we talk about what are the things that are going well and what are the things that are not going well. And this is the inspection time, talking with data, talking about looking at the interactions, looking at the processes. And then when we see something going wrong or when we want to keep something and amplify the effect of it, then we have the adoption part. So we have something like an action out of the retro, and then this is helping us to be able to move. So this is like in the Scrum, it's like our heartbeat. We have short feedback loops and at least every 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 weeks, or 1 month calendar time, we have these short feedback and learning cycle loops, and it really helps the team to improve. So this is why we wanted to mention about the empiricism, and retrospective is the empirical process control for the teams to inspect and adapt on the process, relations, tools, and these kinds of things.
Good. And next we will talk about what the Scrum guys tells about the retrospectives. So the idea is then that that's the event or the ceremony, as some might have seen it in older Scrum guys. So that happens last at the very end of the sprint. So after the review and after everything else, you sit down with your team members and discuss of what went well. And normally you, the idea is to find and increase ways of how the team can better collaborate and become more effective. According to the Scrum Guide, we should reserve for this like 3 hours for a 1 month sprint. So if we have a 2-week sprint, that's mostly the most common practice that people have, then it's a good thing to have 1.5 hours, half of it. And who should be participating? It's the whole Scrum team, meaning like the developers, the Scrum Master, and the product owner. And normally the Scrum Master is facilitating. That's of course not mentioned in the Scrum Guide. And the outcome of the retrospective should be to have some things that could be improved, how the team can become more effective, either in their own processes and ways of working, either in their own relationships like people, or then in the different tools and things they want to try out in order to become better. And yeah, there are like 5 stages for this. Setting the stage in the beginning, gathering data, generating insights, deciding what to do, and closing the retro. That are the things that Diana Larsen in her book, Agile Retrospectives, Making Good Teams Great, which is one of the standard books for retrospectives a long time ago. And it has been followed ever since. So, that's the theory.
Yeah. Thank you. And since you have already mentioned, Pascal, that Scrum Masters mostly facilitate the retrospectives, and also the retrospectives are not limited only to Scrum events. So you can run retrospectives with the different group dynamics. But we also want to mention about, in order to facilitate a good retrospective, what you need to be aware of. These are really very important. We think that as Agile 42, there are 3 factors that affect the success of facilitation. So the first one is about the process. In order to have a good retrospective in that time box, you need to have something like a process, the flow. And it's really important that you are allowing everyone to express their own opinion. And since this is a time box activity and the time invested by the team members are really very important, we want to be keeping the group on the agenda and helping them moving forward, and also keep the time box and make sure that the rules are followed. And it's really important that if you run it in physical environment or if you run it in remote environment, you need to prepare the environment and material needed beforehand. And from my own experience, preparation for a retrospective, a good retrospective is at least 1 hour. So you need to think about what you are going to be using as a process. Think about the people. The second one is about the relationships. So you really need to understand who are involved in this retrospective. Okay, the Scrum team members, but everybody is different. So we need to treat everyone equally, but we need to understand how our participants will be feeling comfortable. So we will encourage them to participate in the meeting. So we need to control the climate, and we need to be observing that there are no attacks to the people. People are really focusing on the problems, not attacking each other. And we, as a facilitator, we want them to feel good about their contribution. So even the really very hard problems needs to be talked in these meetings, because this is a place where the team needs to feel safe enough to talk about the, everything. And the third one is really important. It's about the results. Okay, so we set up the goal of the meeting at the beginning, and then we need to come up with some actions out of these retros. If we just talk about the problems and people just, we also need some ventilation. That's really very good. But if you don't want to keep those things happening again, we need to come out of the retrospectives with some results. So you, as a facilitator, you need to understand how much time you need to invest on ventilation part and how much time you need to invest on helping team members come out of actions that they can commit on. Not yourself as a facilitator, but the actions should be committed by the team members. So these are the 3 things that we need to be, as a facilitator, be aware of: the process, relationship, and the results. And as Pascal has also already mentioned, in order to do that in a sprint retrospective, so there are 5 stages. The first stage is setting the stage. So setting the stage is welcoming everyone and talking about the goal of the session, looking for the goal of the session, and hearing from everyone just something, because as we know that if people start talking at the very beginning of the meeting, then they are encouraged, and it shows of us a sign that they will be talking. So we invite everyone. And the second part is about talking about the last iteration, the sprint. So what are the things that this team wants to bring onto the table? What are the data, the subjective data and the objective data? So we want everyone to be bringing the data, and it's really important. Not everyone is talking. Some people like just thinking. So we need to allocate enough good time for them to be able to bring everything, the memorable things. And then when they bring this data, now it's time for us to inspect on this data. So what are the root causes? What are the possible different things they can do later? Why is these things are happening? Or what are the things that happened incidentally and that made the team improve? So how we can keep those things? So these are the things, for us, setting enough time so that they will be talking about different alternatives. And as a facilitator, I encourage you to be just keeping your silence because sometimes, since we are the subject matter experts, we are just jumping out. We like to be jumping out with our own solutions, but it's really good for them, for the team, to come up with their own solutions. And the fourth stage is about decisions. So they may be coming up a lot of good opinions or ideas, but it's really important that what are the things they can take in the upcoming sprint. Okay, so what are the practical actions? So, for example, you have like 10 different opinions. What is the ranking top 3 one they can just start doing? So it's really important that they give their own decisions about what they can do in the following sprints. And then finally at the end, it's really closing the retrospective, thanking everyone for the contribution and making a plan, adding the items to the sprint backlog, and also asking for feedback about your facilitation. It's really important for you as a facilitator to hear at the end of the retrospective and to improve your next retrospectives. So this is the flow of a good retrospective, and this was the point from a facilitation perspective. Okay. So let me go to the...
Good. Yes. Thank you, Ebru. So I've been doing retrospectives since 2005 and being involved, and I've seen like quite many of them, and I've been coming across similar antipatterns, similar challenges that different teams have over and over again when I've been supporting and joining teams and helping them. So one of them is mechanic facilitation of retro. So Ebru, what do you think? What would be a good way to overcome this? Or what do you understand under this?
Yeah, Pascal, that's a really very great question, because after this webinar in the afternoon, I will run the retrospective of one of my Scrum teams. And so in order to make a good facilitation of retro, as a coach, I think the most important thing, or a Scrum Master, is you are with the team, observing the team all the time, okay? You just come with a plan with this flow without knowing what matters to team most. I think it becomes more or less something like a mechanical thing. In order to make it really fit for your team, you need to be observing them. For example, if you are working them in your physical environment, you need to be seeing their dailies, you need to be seeing their interactions with the client, with the product owner, with the team members, and you need to be taking your notes as a retrospective facilitator, and you need to come up with a plan that will help the team to talk about their issues. So it's not like that you come up with the retrospective with a setup process you feel yourself comfortable with. It's really important that you know the context, and you can bring up some data and you can reflect what is happening in the team. And it's also not yourself. I think it's also good that you ask the people, I have these observations with you, and what do you think about these observations, getting their answers. And also, I think it's really very good, what is your issue you want to talk today, like a coaching question. So what are the things that matters to you, and you want to invest your 1 hour time here, so that the time invested from you is really becoming valuable. I think this is one of the ways: observation, coming up with a plan based on your observations, and also verifying it at the beginning of the retro, so that it's really something that becomes fitting for the team. And also you come up with a plan A, and as a facilitator, being ready to come up with something on the fly. So I think it's also something that takes the retro becoming mechanically.
So it's not like for only keeping a meeting for the meeting's sake and having a discussion with some post-its, but really trying to get some value and improvement for the team out of it.
Yeah. So this is also one of the things I would like to ask you, Pascal. What is your experience about retrospectives when you see that people do not talk about the real issues?
Yeah, this not being able to talk about the real issues, people might have different reasons, but perhaps the biggest reason might be that people don't feel safe to bring up the problems because it's something uncomfortable. Either they don't want to hurt each other, or they're afraid of a conflict or of a more different opinion on the discussions that people might have. So it's very important for the facilitator, the Scrum Master, to create an environment in the team that people feel safe to bring up the problems and discuss and about the issues that they see. So everybody's opinion is accepted, even if it's not nice to hear that we made something wrong, but we learn from our mistakes, and that's actually the best opportunity to learn and improve, to put the things on the table and make things visible and transparent. And then you can inspect after that, and then you can decide your actions. So creating a safe environment for discussing, that can happen by making the atmosphere more relaxed, but also like accepting that everybody's human and nobody's perfect and people make mistakes. And also like the facilitator, the Scrum Master, can show his own vulnerability. He's also just a human and he also makes mistakes, and it's okay to talk about it. Yeah. How do you think Ebru would be then if otherwise there is like low participant engagement in the retrospectives? People don't come to the retrospectives, or otherwise like not very interested.
Yeah, that sometimes happens. People really running sprints. Sometimes they may be showing low motivation to attend the retrospectives or talking. I think I have some reasons lying behind it. I think it's also related with the other things. So the team comes up with actions, and these actions are not followed, and they don't really take these actions into their daily lives. I think if they don't see changing their teams, they lose the motivation to change. I think this may be one of the reasons. So as a Scrum Master or coach or team member, first of all, we need to be aware of, okay, we come out of some actions out of the retros. Are we really committed to them? Are they really fitting us? So we are throwing away ideas, but are they really the ideas that we can take further? I think this is really important, and we need to reflect upon that. And also, sometimes I see that people's voices are getting slower. The tempo in the retros are really, the moods are really going down. And as a facilitator, I stop and I reflect upon that. Okay, I said, I'm seeing that you are not having a great time here. So can you reflect? Can you tell me why this is happening? And as a Scrum Master and facilitator, I'm inviting them again to talk about something that really matters to them. If they don't see that something is changing, because some things can be changed by Scrum teams, but sometimes the things needs to be changed by the leaders, or the Scrum Master needs to also follow up the impediments that team can't take on himself. So I think this is really good that as a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach, if something is on us, we are following on that. And if something is not going very well in the retrospective, we just need to stop and reflect back this to the team and ask why they are not participating. But on the other hand, it's really important also change the style, okay? You understand the team's mood. So it's really important to understand the emotional state of the team members there. Something may have happened really very frustrating, and they really are not motivated that time. And first of all, you need to let them to ventilate a little bit, okay? And then you can start again talking. So it's not just, I have my agenda, I have my flow, I need to follow up that, okay? Just again, understand what is happening with the team. And also, the other reason for that, sometimes some team members are really very dominant. They are very talkative and they want to talk, and some members are not very likely to talk, and you need to change your way. Then you can say that, okay, we heard from you, Pascal. So, Fuya, what do you think about this? So you use these different kinds of questions and trying to link the team members to the goal and to each other. And I think this is also improving the participants' engagement. And also, I think I also change my style. Okay, let's not talk now. Let's be quiet for 2 minutes, and then everyone writes, and then everyone will be reflecting on what he or she is writing. So when people start writing and thinking about things, the participation is improving. That's what I have been seeing as a good practices about these challenges to overcome these challenges.
Also, one thing would be to be able, like, to, you know, writing on post-its gives an equal opportunity to everybody to contribute. And there are like those 1, 2, 4 all from liberating structures. But another thing where I check a bit the mood and the contribution and the attitude of the people is to have a check-in according to explorer, vocationer, shopper, prisoner question, and then being able to get an answer about what is the attitude of the people, and then I can like react according to that.
Yeah, and also to improve the participation, it's also good to split people into groups, because some people don't like to be talking in the big crowds. And when you split them in 2 or 3 groups, then people really start talking. And I have also seen this as a good practice. So thank you for your contribution. And I also would like to ask you about, so what do you think about retros without actions?
Yes, retros without actions then might not cause any improvements. So and then there is the question how much value they provide. What is the return of investment in the time you spent there in the retrospective? There might be retros, and I've seen retrospectives where there might be external problems, or where people just want to ventilate and bring up their pain and things. And once they've mentioned them, then the mood changes because they have been like let off and being able to let go. But normally, if you don't come to a special conclusion after the retrospective, then this means that you don't take action on improving. So you're not adapting your way of working, and you stay at the same old patterns that you have. So that is very, very important. And of course, you don't need to improve everything. If you find one thing to improve, that would be enough. My rule of thumb, which I use, is like I try to have 3 things, because sometimes one thing might not work. So then you have still 2 things that you can work on and improve. And you can see all the time some kind of improvement from one sprint to the other in the ways of working. And those actions don't need to be like decisions that we do things now, but they can that we fix the world totally, but they can be like small steps, and they can be also experiments. Let's try this out, because sometimes we might not even know exactly what would be the right solution. So, but all of those would be actions. And I've seen, Ebru, that people in some teams, I've seen that they don't follow up on their actions. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think this is also some of the things. Yeah, people like to talk, but sometimes they don't like to take notes. What I use as a good practice is that at the end of the retrospective, I encourage my teams to take this into the sprint backlog, to write these as retrospective actions. And generally, I encourage them, and also talking with the product owner, 10% of their capacity should be investing time to improve, and writing those items really as their sprint backlog, and also as a reminder at the end of the, not every day, but daily scrums, what has happened with those experiments. Is anyone taking those experiments? Do you see any improvement? Is it working, or do you need to be taking another step? And also following them on the daily scrums is a good practice. And also at the beginning of every retrospective, after checking, we also need to, last retrospective we talked about these, and these were improvement items, and they were in the sprint backlog. What did you do with those, and what are your results? Did they work, or do you need anything else to follow up? As a facilitator and Scrum Master, you need to be helping the team to follow up their actions. I think these are the good practices, putting them in sprint backlog, investing some time. So it's not something that they need to be working out of their working hours. So 10% they may be investing of their capacity, talking in the daily scrums, making them visible. But on the other hand, I also, something came into my mind. It's really teams improvement actions. So we don't, we need to be aware that we don't report everything the team talks about. So it breaks the safety. So it's really a good balance about what the team wants to reflect outside the team. So what are the actions they are trying? And as a Scrum Master and coach, if there you need to be working on those items with other parties in the company or with third parties, you need to be helping them. So you don't leave them alone to be able to follow up during the sprint time. I think these are my good practices to follow up on the actions. So it's not like, okay, guys, did you do it, following like that? But it's if you talk and if you decide, then if you commit, remembering that one of the Scrum values is commitment. It's not only commitment on the product improvements, but it's about commitment on inspecting and adapting on the process, interactions, and tools. So these are the things we don't need to forget. So courage to change, to try different things, openness, and also commit what we have decided. So I have my last challenge, Pascal. So what do you think about the retrospectives that start becoming boring?
Yes, I've seen many times in teams that there is a certain schema of how to run the retrospective, meaning that there are always the same questions asked. Most common is like start, stop, continue. If you always ask the same questions, you will always get the same perspective for the way you inspect and how you see what happened in the previous sprint and what are the feelings of the people about it. And if you do that over 2-3 times, you will probably see some improvement on things going on, but you will probably miss out on a different perspective, and also you will miss out on asking different questions will help the people think on the sprint from a different point of view. They might also make different reflections on this. So changing the style, the retrospective is run asking different questions, setting a different stage in the beginning. Perhaps sometimes there might be some certain topic that you want to focus more specific on certain incident or certain thing that happened during the last sprint, and you might have a common decision with the team. Let's focus on this time. So that is all part of setting the stage in a different way, and also thinking about all the facilitation process in different ways. Changing it all the time might be a bit more tiring. So my rule of thumb is then to try same style like 2-3 times and then try something else. And there are many ideas. We will give some resources of different ideas for retrospectives later on.
Those are really very good tips. What I also find really helping me is understanding people. What makes these people excited? So when you get to know the people as a Scrum Master and facilitator, you really know them, and you really can put things together in the process or the activities, the exercises, what really this team is, the mood is on. So I think it also takes the retrospectives a little bit out of boring state. I think it's really important to think about the people, the relations. What are these people motivators, something like that. So
yes, it's true that Scrum as such is quite easy. The Scrum guide is not very big, but what makes it challenging really is the people. So working with the people is the biggest challenge. all the other things are easy to learn, but then how to do the interaction with the people, that's like the most challenge. And I would say the opportunity for inspecting and adapting is not only in the retrospective, but also you can do in between the sprint, like in a personal discussion or in the daily, like discuss about some things and improve. You don't need to wait always for the retrospective.
So before we close up the telling about our own challenges, experiences, and practices, we have just 2 questions, and then we will be giving you time to talk about the questions. And so we will again, by the help of Mentimeter, we have 2 questions to you. So these were the general challenges we had in our retrospectives. And so we are asking your challenges, and also not about just challenges, since we are people learning from each other. We also would like to hear your good practices. So what are the good practices you use and practice yourself in your retrospectives? And again, we have the QR code here and Mentimeter link. And Pascal, you can again maybe share the...
I can present, yes.
Okay. So I'm stopping now.
So if I start sharing my... So, and the link, by the way, is in the chat. Both me and Sophia have, I forgot it's put to everybody. So it was... Thank you, Sophia.
No problem.
So yeah, engaging people in a remote setup. Yes. The pandemic has brought us all working not in the same place. We are all working from home, and that is a big challenge. And one thing I've seen for retrospectives that helps is visualizing things in a good way and using the tools so that people can have equal opportunities also remotely and contribute. There's also something that people cannot do much about if there are technology issues with weak bandwidth and internet connections. People don't like each other. Yeah, that I've seen also. Fearful, not having the psychological safety to bring up things, commitment, participation due to cultural differences. If there is a global team, you also have the distance, and you might have also language. People might be talking different kind of English dialects, and also the time difference. Doing them always remote. Yeah, I think I've been in my first on-site workshop 3 weeks ago, and I think we achieved in 2 days with my the team I worked with much more than what we have been achieving like in several weeks before. So we got really aligned over those 2 days. So I think if it's possible, please try to meet every now and then in the same location. Mature team works really well and struggles to find anything to improve. If things don't come like easily, then we might like think, okay, can we have some experiment of something or try something new out? Then you might find something to improve. But then if a mature team brings up and they have been a long time together, then probably you don't need that much time for the retrospective. I've seen also this. Low participation, big team, more than 10 people, that makes it more difficult. But then think about liberating structures where you everybody puts things on the post-its, and then you need to limit the airtime by the people. Quiet people, yes. So all things convincing people about the value of the retrospective. Yeah, so that is something, if somebody does not see the retrospective valuable, then probably he will not be willing to join. But then it would be good to have a discussion with those people that are like more feeling as prisoners in the retrospective, why they are feeling this way, and what would make the retrospective more valuable on them. So having a retrospective theme about how can we make our retrospectives more effective and more enjoyable and things, that is also part of the of the sprint, and it's okay to talk about those things. Yeah, other teams can give feedback that is then perhaps involving your team and getting also the feedback from other teams. That is then in a bigger setup where you're having more teams involved, but there are also ways to make things. And, I've seen some teams also do partly, they collect the data, perhaps as they are now in the remote environment, they might collect the data asynchronously, and then they generate insights partly in an online meeting, and then they decide on the actions on an online meeting. So they have split a bit the retrospective in semi-asynchronous and semi-synchronous. And we had another slide, which were your practices. So let me see. Do I get that going to the next slide? What are the good practices? So have you found the second question? This seems to be pretty empty. So what we will be doing, we will be sharing the Miro board later on, so you can like read and look what we've been discussing here, but then we will also collect your input into the Miro board so that they can see then also those. Creating an impediment backlog. Ask questions to relate to the sprint goal, yes. Make it fun and interactive. Keeping the time limit. Icebreakers. Having a return of time invested at the end. Peer discussions. Playing a game. So gamification helps, like breaking the ice, and also helps perhaps even getting new insights and makes the thing more fun and more interesting. Use some retrospectives for lighter get to know the team members better formats. That is also an option if that helps the collaboration inside the team. That is like the team can decide what other topics to be discussed and perhaps also agree together of how they want to best use the time. So it depends on the situation and in the environment the team is. I've seen retrospectives, they then don't have impediments, or they focus more on working agreements, or there is from the range can be very big. Online tools, there might be some good online tools. I would not give any recommendation. We have this Zoom here for giving this webinar, and we have been using Miro. There are also other tools, and all companies use different tools and their different preferences on how to do that. Retroboard, yes. Go on with max 2 action items. Yes, having more focus on the actions. If you take too many actions and want to improve too many things at one time, then you lose focus, and then you might end up of doing something for everything, but then not doing nothing properly. So if you can get enough things where you can be sure that you can improve, then those would give you some improvement and make the situation better. Having a good laugh, yeah, jokes, and breaking the ice in that way. And yeah. Great, thank you very much. All those are very good ideas, and I see that you have also been practicing and trying different things. So that's about it, trying things out and having the courage to try them out. So I think, yeah, what we wanted to share still would be, can you open the sharing of the Miro board, Ebru?
Yes, I was answering some of the questions.
Okay.
Okay.
We have very many questions today in the webinar, so I think your presentation has been very, very good and successful in that case.
So what we wanted to show you next was actually a list of.
I'm coming.
Yes. We have a list of different things, resources that you could use for getting ideas and inspiration for the retrospective. The first one is probably known by most of you. It's the RetroMart, a collection of different tools and ways of how to do retrospective, also broken down on the 5 steps that we have. There is RetroWiki, there is fun retrospective, team retro. Different people have been collecting those things in their own interest. Then there are liberating structures and tasty cupcakes, which you can use as how to facilitate, which are not specific to the retrospective, but you can use those facilitation techniques in the retrospective. And then there are many books about retrospectives. The most known one is this one by Esther Derby and Diana Larson. But I'm sure if you go to some bookstore, online bookstore, and you Google or search about book about retrospective, then you will be able to find many of them.
Okay,
Yes.
I think we have the last summary page.
Yes. Would you like to present that?
Yes. So the key points in a retrospective is that first we mentioned about safety. So we need to create a safe environment, help everyone to participate. Not everyone is maybe familiar with the tools we are using. So we need to be aware of that. And we need to, if something as a tool we are using, we need to help the team members to feel comfortable using them. And it's really good that we come out of it concrete actions. What is the practical thing we are going to be doing? As Pascal said, 3 things maybe most out of a retrospective. It's a session for the whole team. So it's not, we don't need to talk about really a problem that's with the 2 team members, but it needs to be a session for whole team. So everyone is really getting value out of it. Making it a living meeting, as we said, not just a mechanical approach. So observing the meeting and being ready to fly, change your plan according to what is really happening right now. And what do we expect from a retrospective? Improvement task to the incoming sprint and updated working agreement. When we want a behavioral change, we need to really write it and make that every team member is really aware of what do we want to work on. And updated definition of done. If we have problems on the quality, then we need to talk about, and we really need to make it updated. And if we have problems about the coming requirements, the product backlog items, and if you want to improve our delivery, then we need to be talking about how we can understand the product backlog items better, so that in the sprint planning meeting, we understand and we commit on them and we have a plan about them. So we have an updated definition of ready. So these are the possible outcomes, outputs of a retrospective. I think that was all what we wanted to share. So
Thank you.
Share part.
Next, we can go to the questions and answers.
Absolutely. And since we now have not so much time, maybe we can also ask you, Ebru and Pascal, when you share the mirror board, to maybe share some answers to the questions that will be unanswered also today, because we have very many very good questions here today. So I'm finding it difficult to pick where to go, but can you maybe start with explaining or give any suggestions on how the team members can come prepared and engaged into a retro? Is there something the facilitator can do to prepare the team?
A good practice I've seen in one team, they had a wall about a diary of the they were co-located at that time. But I think that's also like possible in the remote, that they had a wall where they were like putting on a flip chart things about what went well, what did not go well, or things they wanted to talk about in the retrospective. So they had a parking place and they were collecting. Everybody was allowed to do that. That was a way to prepare, a technique I've seen. Perhaps the facilitator can like ask some questions about, in the invitation for the retrospective or a day before, in the daily, tell them, hey, tomorrow we have that. Please think, reflect on silently, spend some 10 minutes and come with your input. We will do this and this kind of retrospective. So giving a heads up, that would help.
I was also using something like on virtual environment, the impediments backlog. So I'm just asking people if they see something is not moving, not from the product part, but it's if they have something really problem. I also don't, it's not, they need to wait till the retrospective to solve a problem they are facing, okay? So if they come up with a problem in the second day of sprint or the third day of a sprint about, for example, testing procedure or talking with a sponsor or something like that, I think it's also good practice that people are really taking actions during the sprint. But the retrospective is the last activity. So we look at the back to the iteration and what did we do in order to be coming up with our sprint goal or with everything working, and if everything was good, or did we do any something that we need to talk right now as a whole thing. But also it's not just every problem waits till the retrospective. I think it's also good practice and putting an impediment backlog and asking sometimes if they want to pick this impediment before the retrospective, we will again invest some time in the retrospective, what we did. So every team member knows what has happened. But on the other hand, as Pascal said, making the problems visible. And also, not before the retrospective, there was also a question about a matter team. And I'm asking, what do you want to talk about in this retrospective? What matters to you most? So I also get their topics. This is also a way of engaging people, because if they talk about their own problems, they want to talk and they really talk.
Thank you. You also showed this picture of the different stages during the retrospective. So can you give some kind of suggestions or tips on how much time to spend on the different stages?
Yeah, there are some it's not something that is fixed timeline, but as a general practice, what I find useful is that check-in is activity is setting the stages, like taking, for example, you are running a 1 hour retrospective and it should be mostly like 7 or 8 minutes or maximum 10 minutes, because you welcome everyone. What is the topic we want to discuss today? What are the session rules? So something like that, you need to, it should be really very quick. But on the other hand, if you want to get really good data out of the team, then I think it's a generally good practice to be able to investing like 20 or 30% of your time gathering the data, because there will be a lot of data and they need to be clustered and people needs to look back and see whole picture, not only their own perspective. And then again, maybe 20% to up to 30% is really looking at those data, okay? So what those data are saying to us, what are the patterns merging out of that data? So what are the things that can be tried? So I think it's really important in order to not going, so they are diverging and they are thinking about a lot of possibilities. So I think gathering data and generating insights are the parts that we need to invest most, and they are more or like the total in 50 to 60% of your total time. And then they have a lot of things to do, and it's really important that they pick up the most important and valuable ones. And it's again like 10%. So using different techniques to help the team members to come up with decision. And then closing the retro is again like 7 to 10% of the whole time, asking everyone about their contribution, asking for feedback to understand the effectiveness of the retro and what can be, how it can be improved, something like that.
Do you want to add something, Pascal, to this?
No, I think like if you've seen the diamond, that also describes that you have the setting the stage should take like very little time. If I would like summarize it, 10% would be setting the stage and closing the retrospective, and then there would be like 20% for collecting the data and 20% for defining the concrete actions, and then the rest 40% would be like for seeing the patterns and getting more insights and, you know, deepening the understanding about the different situations and selecting the important things.
Okay. I know it's already now 1 o'clock here in Helsinki and 12 o'clock. So I just want to take one last question before we end the webinar. I hope that's fine with you guys. Can you still give some final tips and tricks on how to make sure that the agreed actions coming as a result of the retro are effectively followed and implemented as the part of the coming sprints?
So, I mean, actions that you have from the retrospective, they should be smart actions. So there should be really specific, they should be measurable, they should be like achievable, they should be relevant to the topic you are doing, and then timely bound. You should like have those, that is a good abbreviation, SMART. You can probably Google it, and those are good criteria for having good actions. Then, of course, defining the actions, and I've seen there have been once in a team defining actions, but they're never following up, and then they never knew if something happened. So it would be also interesting, Scrum Master, who is like responsible, depending on the situation, and what is the action to follow up on this. Make it perhaps transparent, visible, if you have an impediment board or some other boards, or if you put it in your sprint backlog for the next sprint. But some way that you can follow up. It doesn't need to be in every, because sometimes those actions might not proceed every day, but at latest in the next retrospect, we would be good to see, like, has that been helping us?
Okay. Thank you. It was very, very nice of you guys to spend some time here with us today in the webinar. And thank you, Ebru and Pascal, for the great presentation. And thanks also to everyone listening who has been very active and answering also the coaches' questions and chatting and asking good questions. Unfortunately, we couldn't answer all of your live questions, but we will be having a look at them and trying to answer them in the sharing of the Miro board as well after this session. We also have sorry, we also have a very nice e-learning on facilitating retrospectives if you would like to take an e-learning and learn a bit more about that. And of course, you can also contact Ebru, Pascal, or us in the offices so that we can help you also get in touch with the coach for some more support. Hope to see you in the next webinar.
Thanks to everyone for participation and letting us to tell about our experiences and practices.
Thank you also from my side. Stay safe and healthy and enjoy the summer, at least in the Northern Europe.
Vacations are coming.
Cold in the south of Southern Hemisphere, but wherever you are, have a good time.
See you.